2022. I'm Councillor Phil Rogers and I'll be chairing this meeting. Please ensure that your mobile phones are switched silent for the duration of the meeting. In addition, when asked to raise your hand, if members could please raise your electronic hand, and the people who are in the room, just raise your hand, your normal hand, please. For the purpose of declarations, I would like to confirm that we will scrutinise items numbered 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 16, 18 and 19. I've received, on the cabinet papers. I've received apologies from Councillor Chris James, Councillor Charlotte Galsworthy and Councillor Sean Percy. Now we'll move on to the declarations on agenda item 2. Are there any declarations of interest? If members have declarations in relation to any of the reports on today's agenda, can you please indicate it now, and Alison will make a note of the declarations. Alison will then forward an electronic version of the form for you to complete and email back to her. So we've got Councillor Marcia Spooner.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just on agenda item 10, with the rent arrangements for childcare settings in schools, we're opening a new one in Rose Primary, and I'm the chair, so just a personal one, but I got dispensation to speak and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. As a trustee of Canolvan Mardy, I declare an interest in item 7, and if anybody ends up discussing it who wasn't at the pre-briefing, then the third sector grants paper.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Item 7 and item 10, I'm the remunerated director of 2 childcare settings in the Avon Valley that contract with Neath Agriculture.
Thank you. Okay then, thank you everyone. You will see agenda item 3, the minutes of the previous meeting. You will see the minutes attached at pages 5 to 12 of your agenda pack. If you feel these are an accurate record of the meeting, can I please have a proposer and a seconder? If members do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this decision is supported to the Cabinet. Could I have a proposer, please?
Can someone please propose that the minutes are accepted?
Of the last meeting, please. Pages 5 to 12 in the agenda pack.
Any members virtually, please?
I'll second that.
Can we just confirm we've had a proposer first, please, before Councillor Reynolds seconds?
I'm happy to propose. Marcia.
Thank you, Councillor Spooner, and seconded by Councillor Reynolds. Thank you very much.
I can't see any indications to the contrary, Chair, so these are approved.
Thank you. Moving along to agenda item number 4. We'll now move to the Cabinet agenda for pre-decision scrutiny. As previously mentioned, we have decided to scrutinise items 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 16, 18 and 19. On to item 7, Flying Start Phase 1 expansion. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
Chair.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry,
Thank you, Chair.
We'll go into a second.
So just to confirm, Councillor Scott Jones is leaving the room. And I can confirm he's left the room.
Hayley Lilly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Prynhawn da. Just to let you know, this report is to seek approval for the Flying Start Phase 1 expansion plan. It's a small-scale pilot. Officers and partner colleagues within health have undertaken some significant work to look at data around this, Welsh Government guidance and current infrastructures to start this small-scale rollout while we await further guidance from Welsh Government as to the next phase. I'm going to hand over to Lisa Clement-Jones. Lisa is the manager of our Early Years and Flying Start service, and once she's presented the report, we'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Lisa Clement-Jones.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I understand you've all seen the report and the attached expansion plan. So we are looking for Cabinet approval for the plan today. The plan proposes that we go into 3 new areas that are not currently covered by Flying Start, and they are small, lower super output areas. So we are looking to expand into Magam 1, Gwaith 2, and Talbot 3. And as Hayley's just mentioned, we've used the robust data provided from Welsh Government along with some of our own vulnerability and deprivation data to ensure these are areas that we are able to go into, and that our data is backing up going into these areas for phase 1. It's a very short phase and a very small phase, so it's only 127 more children onto our Flying Start caseloads. So it is a very small expansion, and 32 of those additional children will be part of our outreach programme. So they are not bound to any area. So that's 32 more children outside of Flying Start that will be able to access the programme, which is fantastic news for us. It is the extension of our Flying Start footprint and the first stage of the Welsh Government's commitment to deliver a phased expansion of early years provision to all 2-year-olds, and with a particular emphasis on strengthening the Welsh medium, and particularly in this report, Gwaith falls into that bracket. The commitment set out by the cooperation agreement between Welsh Government and Plaid is one of their key priorities, and we're keen to to get this approved and get this running for September. I have nothing else to add, Chair.
Thank you, Lisa Clement-Jones. We have a question from Councillor Reynolds, please.
Thank you. I have taken advice. I am a director of a childcare setting, and I was told it would not be a prejudicial interest in this regard. So all I want to do in this regard is welcome the expansion. It's extremely welcome. It's a shame that it's again being done it's being done on postcodes, but it is a start of a phase, and I understand that we have a huge amount of work to do to bring childcare settings up to a capacity where we can take the full rollout within the sector. And I wanted to know what plans were underway to promote that full rollout. There's a huge amount of work to be done, and how far advanced discussions were with Welsh Government on that, because it's going to cost a lot of money and it's going to be a lot of work for our teams. So I'm very interested to hear that, as we've been discussing it at the committee, at the education committees beforehand. Thank you.
Who wants to take it?
Lisa, do you want to? All I will say to start with is I do agree in terms of Councillor Reynolds saying that the sooner that we find out more information around this to prepare for it, the better. We are having ongoing discussions with the Welsh Government around this. I'll pass over to Lisa for any further information, but we haven't had a great deal of detail yet, and that is the one thing that we do want to push for, because you are right, there's a lot of work to do here. And as I say, the sooner that we have the information, that we understand what the budget around this and the criteria around this is, the sooner that we can start to work with our communities then and wider partners. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Lisa.
Thank you, Hayley, and thank you, Councillor Reynolds, again for your support for the sector. We are, as a team, the Early Years and Flying Start team and the childcare team particularly, have been supporting the sector in just trying to increase the quality in general across the sector in readiness for expansion. We don't know the next phase details yet, as Hayley's just outlined, but we are at the right tables with Welsh Government, and we are pushing them to give us more information as quickly as possible. And they have told us they are hoping to release more information over the summer before phase 1 starts. And I hope they keep their promise, because the sooner the information gets to us, the quicker we can jump into planning. As an early years and childcare team, we are trying to second guess what phase 2 is going to look like. So planning is underway in the best way it can be to just get the sector ready for any additional rollout. And we're working really closely with school improvement teams and other teams to make sure that we're all ready as officers to support the sector through this rollout.
Thank you both. Councillor Reynolds, is that okay?
No, that's lovely. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. On to item 8. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, yeah, Mr. Bit. The recommendations are listed on page 15 of the Cabinet Agenda Pack. Can I please have a proposer and a seconder? Oh, sorry, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's gone back to the comments I made in pre-scrutiny. It took me 2 read-throughs to find out what an LSOA was in relation to the report, and it's taken us 10 years to get away with using mnemonics and actually either put in a glossary in. There's a lot of mnemonics here, and I struggled. I didn't know what a lower super output area was until I started reading the report. Can we make sure that officers are aware, particularly with so many newly elected members, that we try to use the correct titles or put a glossary in if there's a lot of abbreviations? It's just a technical thing, but it makes a lot easier for people to read these technical reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Okay, can I please have a proposer then, please, for the recommendation? Oh, sorry, Councillor Suzanne Patterson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to echo that, because not only are these reports for members of council, they are or should be available to members of the public, unless they're private reports. So we don't want to put any barrier in the way of engaging with the public as to what we are doing within the council. And I completely understand that a document full of mnemonics is just going to put people off. So that's my comment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you both. Been a good point there. Hayley Levy, would you like to come back?
Oh, just to say, absolutely, we take your point, Councillor Jones and Councillor Patterson. We usually do put a glossary. I know we've brought reports on ALN before, and we make sure that they're in place in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay then, can I please have a proposer for the recommendations, please?
Propose, Chair.
Sorry, which one, please? Councillor
Jones.
Councillor Jones, proposing. Seconded, please.
Yeah,
second.
Councillor Phillips.
Councillor Reynolds, thank you. Okay then.
So just to confirm, I can't see any members indicating to the contrary, so this recommendation is supported Cabinet.
Thank you.
Can we get Councillor Scott Jones back in the room?
Yes, please. It's likely we're getting Councillor Scott Jones back into the room. Okay, on to item 8, insourcing of leisure services. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
Chair, if I may, it's Andrew Thomas. I'll just do a quick introduction, then hand over to Paul. The purpose of this report, members will all be aware that last February, members took a decision to insource leisure services. What this report does is give members an update in terms of the timescales, with a detailed plan in terms of the various steps that's involved in insourcing, and the project board that's been set up to do that. Paul will take any detailed questions, and he may want to say a bit more, but actually this is just an update report to make sure members are aware of the timescales, and not just members, but obviously as a public report, members of Celtic Leisure, the trade unions, interested parties. So that's the purpose of the report. Paul, do you wish to add anything more?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. The only thing I'd add, Chair, is that a series of meetings have already taken place with heads of service colleagues from other directorates. For example, Chris Owen, IT, has met with the person responsible for IT in Celtic Leisure, and they started to undo and look at their processes compared to us. Excellent support from other directorates. We've had a series of meetings with Celtic Leisure regarding the information we want, and Chris set up a share platform where Celtic officers can just upload documents we need. Obviously, things like HR is locked, and only our HR officer can enter that particular file. But yeah, it's all proceeding very well, Chair. As Andrew mentioned, Appendix 1, that is a version of the timescale and the work that is involved. I can't emphasize, Chair, the amount of work that is involved for officers in other directorates as well, on top of the day jobs. But everybody's turned up and doing a good job today, Chair. So the process has started. We can confirm that, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Paul. I have a couple of potential questions here. We'll start off, please, with Councillor Reynolds, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the paper and thanks for the information, Andrew. I would suggest this is something other than this is an item for decision, so it's more than just information to the Cabinet Board. And I am, there are a number of questions I want to raise, and I know colleagues have other questions. So under paragraph 3.1.2, we aimed, when we discussed this previously in the previous administration and prior to the decision, that the centres were going to be complete local health improvement solution, and that they would, we asked, as I remember, in the task and finish group at that time, that there would be wide scale involvement of other relevant council services, and that we would look to integrate and create a holistic solution for services as much as possible. So I wanted assurance that we were in discussion with social services, education, heritage and tourism developments, etc., about any links, any ways of working that could improve and could assist the sustainability of the services that are currently being provided, and extend them or move from other venues that we might pay more for or use, etc., etc. So there are a range of things that we would like could happen there, and that links therefore with mental health and things like that. And whether we've had any discussions about social prescribing with the health service. And do you want me to take them one by one, Chair? Or
if you could, I can come back on that, Councillor Reynolds. As you're aware, I'm responsible for the National Exercise Referral Scheme. We work closely with the Health Board, Public Health Wales. We have now in a position, we've drawn down an additional £100,000 a year funding for the team to deliver on behalf of the Health Board. Celtic Leisure will in future, when the transfer happens, become part of the new leisure services, and experiences we've learnt, contacts we have, we will be working with Celtic Leisure or the new indoor leisure services to ensure that these links are made, Chair.
Thank you, Paul.
Chair, could I just add to that, please?
Yes.
The next stage after this report, Councillor Reynolds, is the business plan coming to members in the autumn term, probably October, November time. And in that business plan, you'll see the detail of those links that have been mentioned previously. So they'll be explicit in the next report, which is the business plan for members to see, one, the likely cost of operating an in-source leisure service, but also the opportunities around investment, the income generation opportunities around that, and those links with the the departments within the council and other agencies outside of the council, and health would be an obvious one. So yes, they are being considered, and it'll be in that detail will be in the business plan, Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas.
thank
Councillor
you, guys. Yeah.
take a
I
point.
wanted, yeah, this I'm happy with that. I know colleagues may have follow-ups as well, but I wanted to note the mention of the swimming pool in Pontardawe under 313, because my view is that with the review going on for schools, that may well be under threat. So just leave that there. But if that happens, you know, the plan would have to be reviewed in that regard. And the project board, yeah, I wanted to question under 511 what would be deprioritized and possibly lost due to the additional workload. I am really concerned, and in the previous administration we did discuss using funding from reserves in order to enable and employ additional staff to make some of this possible for our staff. We realised the amount of work it was going to be. What plans have been done to make sure that no services are damaged by the additional activity in the current year?
I'll make a start, and Paul will come in, no doubt. We've got a consultant working with us in terms of assisting us through the whole process between now and the end of, well, not just now, but they've been working with us for a few months between now and sort of the transfer point. So that's one assistance. The business plan that I just referred to is we're just going to appoint a consultancy to help us prepare that, because that is a lot of work for obvious reasons. But of course, what that's just described is probably taking some of the pressure off Paul, who is actually shouldering the vast majority of the burden here. But in terms of the other departments, Paul, I don't know if you're aware of what other departments are doing to lessen the burden. I'm not sure what that is, even if it is possible. But I don't know if you've had those conversations, Paul.
We've had conversations, Andrew, but at this moment in time, the process has just started. So that no burdens have come to light. Our HR colleagues and IT colleagues, they will have the biggest pieces of work to do here, because whilst the buildings are going to legally transfer back from Celtic and they will surrender leases, that isn't that complicated process. But I will pick up with Sheena and Amy and Chris, and they will bring any issues like this to the board, councillor, and we will then look at extra resources. But as Andrew said, we've got a business consultant working with me at the moment, which is we appointed yesterday.
Thank you, Andrew and Paul. Councillor Reynolds, do you have a response?
So we can expect some more information to September's education scrutiny committee and cabinet board, I'm assuming.
The plan does allow for me to bring update reports on a regular basis. Councillor Reynolds, I'm quite happy to bring an update report on the progress being made by the project group to September's meeting.
Brilliant, thank you, Paul.
Can I just be clear there, Councillor Reynolds, the business plan is due to come in October, November, if you were specifically referred to that. If you're talking about updates in terms of progress and if there's been any blockages, sort of generally, yes, absolutely, updates, regular updates to members is what we are promising.
Could I add something as well, please, Chair? Communication is key to this whole process between us as council officers and between us and staff in the Leisure Trust. Sylvia Griffiths and I have worked on a communication plan strategy, which will come to you in September for information. But we've already started the process where Celtic will be monthly. Every month, their chief executive will be emailing all employees with update details on where we are in the process. I met with Unison yesterday to go through a couple of issues, and we confirmed that, and a meeting with GMB next week with Amy Hutchins to confirm with GMB. But we will be leading on the communication whilst it will be going out from Celtic Leisure, because the one thing that I did learn from the previous process was staff were frightened and nervous about their futures because Celtic wasn't telling them as much information. So we will be open with the staff and Mike Bendick, who's the Unison shop steward in Celtic, was very supportive of this process, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. My final one is an amendment at the end around the recommendation. So, along with Councillor Jones, I'm happy to come back then, and others need to ask questions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. On to Councillor Jones, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A couple of questions. The report at paragraph 7.1.6 originally indicates a funding gap of £2.4 million when that report was written in February. That is now, with the cost of energy, etc., moved to £3.1 million. That's a considerable funding gap. Looking at the 23-24 inception of the full in-house being brought back. My concern under paragraph 7.1.4, where it highlights the financial collapse and leisure provision in England on the brink. My first question is, knowing that Celtic Leisure has been financially supported heavily by this council during the initial stages of the decision to in-source leisure provision, what further support are Celtic going to be given, either financially or human, to continue that support until the transfer takes place? That's my first question, please.
I'll start, Paul. In terms of the financial position, Councillor Jones, as you will be aware, there is an indemnity agreement in place to indemnify Celtic against any losses that it makes over and above the management fee, which we currently give it, which is £1.5 million. I know Hugh and Nicole are on the call, so Nicole particularly may have the update position in terms of financial assistance that they require in year. Hopefully I'm not putting Hugh and Nicole on the spot. Maybe Paul would have that figure. Paul meets with the Chief Exec of Celtic very, very regularly. I think it's actually on a weekly basis now, and that's our effort, if you like, to try and support them to get through this period of time. It is difficult. You know that they've lost some senior staff. That is having an impact on business. It would be almost impossible for them to recruit at this juncture, because as a company they will cease to exist come the 31st of March next year. So it is difficult for them, and we're trying to help them through that. So, Paul, is there anything you wish to add there?
Not really, Andrew. On the human resources side of it, yes, I do meet weekly with the Chief Executive, and I felt that was necessary to offer him the support. I also meet on a monthly basis with Nicole and Amy from HR and Finance, where we go through the accounts and we then discuss other issues with the company. We are monitoring it very, very closely, Chair, and we are working with them and assisting them where we can, Chair.
If I could just stop you a moment, all those online. We have a technical issue within the room at the moment, and our display screen has actually switched itself off. If you could bear with us for a minute or so, whilst we reboot it, please.
There you are.
Oh, we're back. Thank you very much. We seem to have restored vision. So thank you very much, Paul. Councillor Jones, back to you, please.
I note that Hugh Jones has got his hand up. Perhaps it would be more prudent if he came in before me, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Hugh Jones.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of providing an answer to Councillor Jones's question, obviously, currently Celtic Leisure trade at around a £2.5 million deficit, of which we then provide them a management fee of £1.5 million. They have benefited from some loss of income claims from the Welsh Government COVID fund. At the moment, even though we haven't any certain figures, we expect to have to indemnify them to the tune of around £600,000 this financial year. And then obviously, as Councillor Jones will be aware, it was the fact that Celtic Leisure couldn't operate within the management fee was the reason why this process was started a number of years ago. So that's where we are at the moment, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Jones. Jones,
Yeah, thank you for that answer. I think that leads on. In my experience, I don't think we could have better officers leading on this with Andrew and Paul. Paul was the one that actually transferred Celtic out, so is well versed to actually recovering it back in-house. I think what concerns me going forward with the issues that have been highlighted by myself is contained in the report of paragraph 7.1.3, and as I've already alluded, the February report has now been superseded by the 113% increase of energy bills, making the gap go from 2.4 to 3.1. But the report clearly identifies in those sub-paragraphs of identifying permanent savings elsewhere in the council's budget, generating additional income or reduction of costs within the indoor leisure services itself, and the increase of council tax, which clearly indicates a 1% increase will lead to a net income of 600,000 going forward. That report is sounding alarm bells, which is why it's going to be so vitally important that we keep our own in-house staff and Celtic Leisure current employees informed every step of the way, together with the unions, because reading that report under those three sub-paragraphs, the permanent savings that are highlighted there inevitably ends up either with staff redundancies or closure of facilities. There is no real other way to accrue £3.1 million to fill that gap. If we look at a combination, if we are looking at services within the leisure provision, it means an increase to get generated income, and I can't see anywhere where we are going to have £3.1 million generated income when we struggle to get that across the whole of the services that we provide within the authority. That will have a knock-on effect to our communities going forward. And of course, the third one of an increase of council tax, we are looking at a minimum of 6% increase on the current council tax, which is zero. So the year 23-24, when we look to insource this, we will start at a base rate of a 6% increase to close this funding gap of 3.1 million at a minimum. If the other two fall short in relation to either redundancies, savings, or lack of income generated financial support, I have grave concerns under those three options. Every party supported the insourcing, but these are trying times, and this is without anything like higher NI in contributions. That's going to be the new Prime Minister's ball. Pay rises, inflation rises, running at currently claiming 10%. I don't think this problem's going to go away. It's going to heighten, it's going to get more difficult, and it'll be interesting to see how the coalition are going to deal with these problems going forward and the decisions that they are going to have to make to balance the books in this area. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Next up, we have Councillor Patterson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I concur with my colleagues that it's very unlikely that we're going to be able to close the gap with increased income. However, Andrew did mention the business plan going forward, November, I think, by memory. When we were on a task and finish group for the Lido, we visited several, excuse me, my phone is just, I do apologise. Sorry, I'm trying to manage the phone and ModGov at the moment, so I do apologise, Chair. One of the ways that managers of leisure centres then said was to be constantly up to date with current trends about what people actually want to do with their leisure time. So just having a little plug now that maybe, Andrew, that would be something that you would bring back with the business report. Is that correct?
Certainly what will be in the business plan is what we believe to be the most commercially minded, commercially driven investment opportunities that will drive the income generation as far and as much as possible for obvious reasons. You're quite right, trends in leisure, they do change, they come and go. Health and fitness is always popular, but of course it's how that health and fitness is delivered is important. You know, there's sort of a lot of CrossFit, lifting tires and sort of hitting them with sledgehammers is popular at the moment, and 10-15 years ago it was all about treadmills, cross trainers and rowers. So it is important that, you know, our facilities, we do keep up with the market trends and what people want, but certainly the business plan will contain what we believe going forward will be the most commercially attractive and lucrative investment opportunities for the council to try and close that gap as much as possible. Yeah,
and I expected as much, but sometimes you've got to ask the question.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
And we can expect that in the autumn then.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Is there anything else? Okay. I also have Councillor Clement Williams, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Rob's asked some of my questions on the funding. And adding to his list of costs that are going up is obviously the energy as well and the fuel duty. So I leave that one. There's a mention of an additional officer in workforce impact, but it doesn't say what grade and how much that would cost. So I'm interested in that. 10.1.2. With the employees, it says about identifying employees affected by possible redundancy. Would there be an option to ask for volunteers rather than have compulsory redundancies? Would be another question. And finally, I got a feeling Councillor Reynolds may be picking this up with her amendment, but number 14, recommendations B. Delegated authority be granted to the Director of Education, Level and Lifelong Learning, as always normally sat with, and also the Cabinet Member and Leader. And but I have a feeling that Sonia Reynolds might pick that up, but if not, I would like to add that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. Are there any other questions on this item at the moment?
Chair, can I just respond to Councillor Williams? In terms of the additional office, I think that's reference to the fact that in the business plan, we intend to bring to members what a leisure services department will look like. Obviously, we're bringing indoor leisure back into the council. That needs to fit into the wider, you know, leisure and sort of tourism offer that the council has developed over time. So, you know, there's a structure really that will come with that. And at the moment, you know, what Paul and I have looked at is the need for potentially one additional officer. So the detail of that will be in the business plan. And just in terms of voluntary redundancies instead of compulsory, by law, if we're in a compulsory redundancy position, we have to consider, you know, ask for voluntary redundancy prior to any compulsory redundancies being taken forward. So obviously we will do that, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just come back briefly? It was just the way it was worded in there, Andrew, that I just wanted to clarify that with you.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
Scrutiny. No problem at all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, both. Are there any other questions on this item? Councillor Reynolds, I'll be back to you for the amendment.
Yes, if that's okay. It's the recommendation in paragraph 14.1.1b. This is no distrust of council staff or the director in any way. It is just that it's a heavy weight of responsibility for this level of financial commitment and action. So we need accountability to be spread more widely. And the norm would be that it involved the relevant members of the administration. So I would propose that the amendment reads that the Director of Education, Leisure and Lifelong Learning, with the Cabinet Member for Education and the Leader, be granted delegated authority to make the initial decisions required to enable them to present a full business case to the council in 2022 for the delivery of insourcing of leisure services by the 1st of April 2023, and include the brackets following that if it's required still.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds.
I can send that to it's typing into the chat would be difficult now, but I can send it to leisure services if they require. To democratic services, sorry.
Could you pop it in the chat, please, Councillor Reynolds, because we do need to have a copy of it now to be able to read it out, please. Apologies, we can give you a couple of minutes.
Chair, would you mind if I ask?
Okay,
Would you mind if I ask Councillor Reynolds a question, which is quite the reverse of what normally happens? Did you say the cabinet member for education in your amendment? Because if you did, of course, the cabinet member for education doesn't have the portfolio.
Sorry.
No, I just wanted to clarify that before.
I'm slightly out of date. Sorry.
No, that's fine. There's no point sort of taking forward an amendment which.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
No, it's fine.
Thank you both.
Could you just give Councillor Reynolds a moment just to pop the amendment into the chat, please?
Okay.
Put the chat up, okay?
Yeah.
So everyone can see it.
It's going to take you a bit to type it in. Sorry. You can talk amongst yourselves. It's also, I'm having difficulty with the response on chat. It's hanging up. Sorry.
Slowly. Would you like to just read it out again slowly, Councillor Reynolds?
Yes, certainly. As I type, it's just stopping, and it's a problem then. So the Director of Education, Leisure and Lifelong Learning.
Okay, could you give us some more, please?
With the relevant cabinet member and the leader. Be granted delegated authority to make the initial decisions required to present a full business case to council in October 2022.
Can we clarify council or cabinet board?
Is that council or cabinet board? Councillor Reynolds, just to clarify.
Well, it says council in the paper, so I was following on from that, but I would anticipate that something would go to the Education Cabinet Board before that. But it says council in the paper. And that goes on to say for the delivery of the insourcing of leisure services by 1st April 2023.
Yeah.
We happy? We are happy? Okay.
So can I just confirm then the amendment is the Director of Education, Leisure and Lifelong Learning with the relevant Cabinet member and leader be granted delegated authority to make the initial decisions required to present a full business case to Council in October 2022 for the delivery of the insourcing of leisure services by April 2023.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Could I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
I'll propose that.
Proposer, Councillor Reynolds,
I'll second that, Chair.
and seconded by Councillor Bob Jones.
Just to confirm, members, we are voting on the amendment to recommendation part B first. So if I do not see any members indicating to the contrary, then the amendment is approved. So can I see if there's any members indicating to the contrary, please, by raising your electronic hand. I can't see any members indicating to the contrary, so I can approve that that recommendation has been approved, and that now becomes part of the substantive motion and the recommendation, Chair. So if you'd like to take a proposer and seconder for the recommendations in the report to include the amendment, please, Chair.
Hello, could I have a proposer and seconder, please, for the recommendations in the report to include the amendment, please?
Chair, can I make a point of order?
Certainly, Councillor Rob Jones.
As a scrutiny committee, we can only recommend that the cabinet actually take cognizance of what we are saying. We don't vote on the amendments. It's for the cabinet board to actually make the decision as to whether to include that amendment on the recommendations of their papers. I think I'm right in saying that.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Jones. Yes, that is correct. It's for the scrutiny committee to make recommendations for the cabinet, and then the cabinet or cabinet board to ultimately then consider the matter. So what you'll be doing today is just saying how you view the recommendation and what you will be recommending to the cabinet that they consider as part of their determination.
So therefore, to clarify, if the recommendation from the scrutiny committee having been proposed and seconded by Councillor Reynolds and myself, that is now passed to go to the cabinet for them to make a decision on that recommendation of amendment?
The way in which we would usually structure it is we would ask members to agree the amendment ultimately in the first instance, and then re-vote obviously to confirm that that is the recommendation that you will ultimately put into the cabinet, Councillor Jones.
Thank you.
Still waiting for a proposer? Yep. Okay. Okay then. So if we could have a proposer and seconder, please, for the recommendations to include the amendment, please.
I propose.
Sorry, use that.
Second, Chair.
So, Councillor Clara Clement Williams proposes, seconded by
Rebecca Phillips, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Thank you very much. Can I please, if any members do not indicate the contrary, then I will take it that this decision is supported to the cabinet.
I can confirm I can't see any members indicating to the contrary, Chair.
Thank you very much, everyone. Let's move on to item 9 next. Item 9 is additional capital programme allocations. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
No, I have nothing to add, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh Jones. Let's have a little look. I've got a couple down here. Councillor Reynolds as well, please.
I'm sorry about this, Chair. I was just wanting to ask what sort of investments are being considered, and how much of that, whether there's any further information on the level and type of investments being considered for this funding. Will it include active travel? What will be the links into the valleys, etc., etc.?
Can I come back on that, Chair, please?
Yep.
Yeah. So this report is asking Cabinet to commission officers to come back with some advice to Cabinet boards in the autumn. So that level of detail will come back to the relevant Cabinet boards in the autumn. At the moment, we're just dealing with the fact that the funding is available and seeking permission to do some work in terms of appropriate allocations, Chair. So when the details are available, it'll come back for discussion at Cabinet boards.
Thank you, Jones. Councillor Reynolds, you happy with that?
Chair, sorry to be difficult, but I'm assuming that means that officers will be looking at what's possible and recommending to cabinet boards. And I wanted to make sure that we were looking as widely as possible, and that all aspects of investment that that members have brought up in the past, active travel links that we haven't been able to fund, particularly in the valleys, for example, will those sort of things be possible? And can they be considered to come to cabinet boards? Thank you.
Sue Jones.
Yeah, no problem, Chair. We'll take those comments on board when we come up with advice for members for the autumn.
Thank you very much. Anything else, Councillor Reynolds?
No, thank you very much, Hugh. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jones, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's more of a legal moot point that Mr. Griffiths may be able to answer. The report clearly indicates that 0.75 million has already been allocated in the capital programme, and there is additional funding coming forward in relation to that. Legal point I query, although my colleague has said for the recommendations to go to cabinet boards, it's the council on the recommendation of the cabinet actually approve the capital programme and the revenue programmes in its annual budgets. And I'm wondering whether in fact that's what the recommendation should be, that cabinet recommended back to council for approval. It's just a moot interesting point in relation to the process that we normally undertake. If it can be clarified, please.
I can hand over to Hugh Jones, please, Councillor Jones.
Yeah.
He may have discussed it and he'll provide you with the answer in that sense.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Jones. I think probably it's an omission in terms of my part in the actual report. So the £1.5 million I referred to is part of the council's capital programme base budget, and that was approved by council to be allocated to spend on catch-up, clean-up, green-up. The £3.5 million is actually a one-off specific capital grant, so it doesn't form part of the council's base capital budget. So it is not a matter for council to consider. It's a matter for officers to then provide recommendations for cabinet board to then agree how to spend the grant. So I should have made that clearer in the report, Councillor Jones, and I apologise for that. So it's a very good point you make. Thank you.
No, thank you, Hugh. I just wanted it clarified, and you've done that. I'm grateful.
Thank you both. Are there any more questions on this item, please?
Yeah, I did have my hand up, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, I do understand about grants, but at the end of the day, this council will be spending millions and across the county borough. Now, usually when things are relative to the whole of the county borough, I agree with Councillor Rob Jones that, the whole of the council should perhaps have a little bit of insight into that. It seems an awful lot of money that we are not actually taking to council. I'm not happy really with that, but if that's, I don't even know what I can do about that. I'm just not happy with it.
Just an observation there. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. It's an observation there, not a question really. Okay. So are there any other questions? Sorry. Okay. The recommendation is listed on page 57 of the Cabinet Agenda Pack. Can I please have a proposer and a seconder, please? Proposer.
Propose.
Councillor Marcia Spooner proposes, and a seconder, please.
Yeah, happy, Chair.
Who's that then, please?
Councillor Rebecca Phillips. Thank you.
Councillor Rebecca Phillips. Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Thank you very much.
Before we go to the board, can I just confirm, Councillor Patterson, is that a legacy hand I can see?
Oh, I do apologise. I'm on the phone, and yeah, I beg your pardon.
All technology, Councillor Patterson, everywhere. Yeah. Members do not indicate the contrary, then I will take it that this decision is supported to the Cabinet.
I can't see any members indicating the contrary, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on, item 10. Childcare in schools, education buildings, temporary changes to current rent arrangements.
Can we just wait for Councillor Scott Jones to leave the room?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Jones, you've got to go there, unfortunately. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Jones has left the room, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Scott Jones has left the room. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
Thank you, Chair. As you've just said, the report is to seek agreement to pilot a change of set rent charges for just for a one-year period for childcare within school and education buildings. It forms the basis of a wider review of this area as part of a programme of work that we're looking at this year. It's intended to support the sustainability of Welsh medium provision in line with our Welsh Education Strategic Plan objectives and also our duties in regards to childcare sufficiency. I'm going to hand over to Lisa Clement-Jones again to present the report and again then to take questions from there. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Lisa.
Thanks, Hayley. Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of the report, as outlined by Hayley, this is a temporary change that we're asking for to the rent arrangements. There is a plethora of arrangements in place across schools in Neath Talbot at the moment, and we're just looking to begin to regularise that, really, looking at the new provision at the moment going forward, and retrospectively, while the pilot is going on, we'll be doing an audit of what payments are in place across the local authority to make sure that whatever changes we make are not having a negative impact on the school or the sector. Because as we've outlined in the previous report, with Flying Start expansion and early years expansion on the mix, we need to make sure that we're really supporting the childcare sector going forward to make sure we've got enough provision there. So our childcare sufficiency audit has clearly identified gaps that we already knew were there in terms of Welsh language childcare provision, and that is in line with our Welsh Education Strategic Plan to have more children accessing early years education in the language of Welsh. And we know that childcare on site in schools is attractive for parents, and it will attract a lot more parents into Welsh schools if we can get more on site, and that's quite clearly detailed in our Welsh Education Strategic Plan. Now, what we don't have is a real draw to get these good quality childcare settings to come into schools. And we think if we pilot this might be a really positive way of getting a lot more of the Welsh language childcare out there to come in and express an interest to be running within our schools. But we also have a gap with after school clubs as well, where governors and school heads are approaching us to help them identify good quality childcare providers to come into the schools. And we've actually lost them previously because rent in some schools was a little bit high. So we hope the provision that we've put in place here with a pilot will help us really test the waters and try and reduce some of the barriers to get in childcare in schools. We need to do a bit of work around what's already out there, as I've said, but we really feel like this is a fair way to go forward. And by testing this, we can come back to Cabinet then and share our results next year to see what our next steps could be. And that's it for me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa Jones. Clement-Jones, sorry. We have a couple of questions on him. There's Councillor Patterson, please.
Thank you. As indicated in the pre-brief, I have contacted Hayley Lurvy to say that I was going to ask this question. What is proposed is in the report, and I would want to know what is it now as a baseline to find out, you know, if we're going to be making a difference here. And also, I am perfectly happy with Welsh medium childcare, and I'm a convert, as people might not know, but I am. But is it weighted towards Welsh medium, or have we done a survey across the county borough to see where childcare in schools is required? Thank you. 2 questions.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Apologies that the report is not clear regarding what is already in place. As I just said in my preamble, there is a plethora of contributions that happen within schools, and what we've not been able to do yet without detailed investigation is really figure out what some of the childcare settings are paying schools, if anything at all, because there will be legacy agreements there, and there will be a difference depending on whether the provider has actually approached the school because they want to run within the school, or whether the school have approached the provider previously. Now, we now have procedures in place for childcare in schools where a head would come to my team to follow that process, and we follow a robust way of doing that. In 2018-19, when we had a considerable amount of childcare capital for childcare offer, we put in a payment system which is detailed in the report, and that is the full daycare payment of the service charges plus a £25 a week rent, and then a top-up rent of £1 per registered place. Now, that is the standard that's in place, but I'll just add to that that there is only actually one setting at the moment that is engaging in that lease agreement and that costing, just one setting. We don't propose to change that, but what we're proposing to do along with this pilot to make sure that there is a balance across the board is we can use what we have in a childcare sufficiency grant to ensure that any childcare settings within schools that do start to struggle with any rent, that they will be prioritised as part of that sustainability grant to support them, so they won't be at a disadvantage in comparison to a Welsh setting or in comparison to an after-school club during this period.
Okay.
In line with your second question, we have just completed a childcare sufficiency audit, and that's out for consultation at the moment. Within that consultation and the childcare sufficiency audit, we update that every 5 years. We already knew where the gaps were because we have, a good contact with the childcare sector. However, it did identify a significant gap in Welsh language, which we are working on, and a significant drop, especially since COVID, in after-school clubs. And we know from our head teachers that that is what parents are asking them for as well. And we know that our schools are now struggling to provide that themselves due to staffing changes, etc. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it answers it in full, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you both. Councillor Reynolds, please.
Thank you, Chair. Like to start off by saying, yes, our staff do have excellent links with childcare services across the sector. They really are good and very helpful to all those that provide, I'm aware. I'm also aware, however, at how tenuous childcare can be, especially with the rising costs. And, the majority of the ordinary childcare assistants who are very well qualified and extremely skilled are paid on the minimum wage because you have to pay, settings have to pay what they can bring in. There is no funding, and apart from funding that comes in under contracts from Flying Start or 30 hours if they have them, but they have to raise every penny that they spend, and staffing is the largest cost. And there are huge demands as well on training for those staff. Now, it is under the last administration, and I realise that I think you've touched on this, Lisa, or it could have been Hayley, but under the last administration, commitments were made that we would never enable school settings to be established which competed with quality childcare that was provided in the sector, existing in the sector. Now, many childcare providers provide a wider range than would normally be provided in a school setting. So competition is not just on what the rent is, but also on what is provided, on how it's provided, on the number of hours, on whether provision also has to be made for under twos, naught, 6 weeks often upwards. And that is, has a high ratio that's required of staff to the users. So therefore, can we, reiterate that commitment clearly in this meeting and say that the commitment will continue under this administration, please?
Would you like to take that?
Is it okay if I just come back to Councillor Reynolds just to say that any childcare that is developed in schools at the moment, we're encouraging governing bodies and heads to do that through the early years and childcare team within the local authority. We then use that information alongside the childcare sufficiency information, and as you know, we are aware of all of the childcare that is running in the area. So we can then assist the school to put out expressions of interest, and we will take into account what is in the area, where the gaps are, and we absolutely wouldn't be encouraging anybody to set up in an area, especially within a school, that would be in direct competition or not not fill in a sufficiency gap that we've identified within a school. Unfortunately, we haven't got control over private settings in private locations, but within the schools, we will be directly responding to the gaps that we've got. And we do that alongside the school improvement team as well. You know, when we work really closely with them to identify any gaps for childcare when we're developing schools as well. Is that okay?
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you.
Very much. I was going to put forward a question myself, but it's already been answered. Thank you very much, Lisa. Are there any other questions on this item? Nobody? Okay. The recommendation is listed on page 64 of the Cabinet Agenda Pack. Can I please have a proposer and a seconder, please? Oh, sorry, Councillor Rebecca Phillips, if you'd like to come in before then.
Yes, okay, Chair. It's just to welcome the report, really, and you know, as a working parent, I know how important it is to have the on-site early years provision and the after-school provision as well, especially through the Welsh language. So I do really welcome this, and I would like to take the proposal forward. Thank you.
Can I ask, would you like to propose that?
I would like to propose the motion. Thank you, Chair.
By Councillor Phillips, and a seconder, please.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson, second.
Yes.
Thank you very much. If members do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this decision is supported to Cabinet.
I can't see any indications to the contrary, Chair.
Thank you very much, everyone. Moving on to item 11. Commissioning.
I withdraw my comment on this, Chair. I think I was the only questioner.
Okay, thank you. We'll pass on that. Take that and straight, is it? Because there's no questions on it then. Yeah, straight through. Okay. We'll take it that item 11 has taken that the decision is supported to Cabinet. Okay, we don't have any listed questions on that. Thank you. Item 12. Yes. Okay. On to item 12. Housing Renewal and Adaptation Service, HRAS, as we all love. Private sector housing renewal policy. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
Yeah, very briefly, Chair. This report is seeking Cabinet approval to implement Welsh Government's request to remove the means testing for small and medium-sized disabled facilities grants. I'll hand over to Rob Davis to elaborate and to highlight the impact if we implement this request. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. Yeah, as Angela said, this was from the Welsh Government's request for us to create a new grant, a discretionary grant, to remove the means test for small and minor works, DFG grants. We took this to Cabinet in January and the decision was made to support it, which then we went away and with legal we pulled together this policy tool document. The old one had out-of-date grants which are no longer funded, so this policy document is now up to date. As Angela mentioned, there is an impact of this. That currently we, out of some of the grants that we do means test, it equates to about £800,000 a year, which we cancel because some people don't want to have the means test, or they don't want to declare their information or whatever it is. So it will have a big financial impact. But the impact is more for the delay in the system, because unless we have additional capital money, we will just exhaust the existing fund that we've got sooner. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Robert Davis. A small question from Councillor Patterson, please.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, small and medium sized. I'm really not sure what that actually means in practice. So
okay,
if you could just let me know.
Yeah, of course. Small. We've got small, medium, and large. Large are anything that's an extension, essentially, and the small and medium is everything else, which is going to be your ramps, access, shower conversions, stair lifts, that type of thing. Okay,
thank you, Chair. If I just may have a follow-up then. Are we working with the landlords and Titarian, Coastal, whoever, have the tenants where these things are actually put in the houses to sort of make best use of them? Because I've heard recently a lot of people saying they're moving out to their property and Titarian just seem to come in and rip it out. And I just wanted some idea of, are we recycling any of these? You know,
Well,
what happens?
Sorry, we primarily work in the private sector anyway. So
private, right.
yeah, but we also do grants for Titarian. They tend to send their bigger, more expensive works to us, the extensions. But they do, especially with adapted properties where they have an extension, they do try to put disabled people or people who need these similar adaptations in them. But yes, you are right. We are aware that they do take out shower conversions, but in most cases they would have paid for that themselves out of their own funds. It's the larger works we tend to pay for Titarian.
Oh, that's clarified it. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you very much both. I have a question from Carol Clement Williams, please.
Thanks, Chair. Rob, question. The 800,000, is that for the medium to small grants?
Yeah.
Which leaves about 200,000. Is that right? It was around £1 million, wasn't it?
Our budget?
Yeah.
No, we spent about 2.6 million.
2.6 million. Okay.
Yeah.
So while I welcome, you know, the proposal, and you know, it's a really good thing to do, it is a worry then, because the bigger grants would, in my head, mean that the person would probably be quite, you know, severely disabled, and them waiting longer would be a, you know, a really bad consequence of this. And I think it's am I right in saying that once again this is legislation that's come with no extra funding? Yeah, and they're notoriously bad at doing that, and the impact is going to be on some of the most needy in society. So I was wondering if the Cabinet, obviously you can't answer this, but I was wondering where the Cabinet would be looking to increase that pot of funding, and that on top of the extra funding that Councillor Jones mentioned earlier. It's very easy, isn't it, when you've got a blank page to say, yeah, we want to do this and we want to do that, but when you promise not to raise council tax, and we're facing this kind of issue with the costs going through the roof, and I mean, let's be fair, it's in the front page of all the newspapers. It's not as easy to do as it sounds. And I really think that this would be an area where they may want to look to spend some extra money for people, because if we can keep them in their own home, it's a sort of spend to save, because you're going to, if you can keep them in your own home, you don't have to take them into care. It's a heck of a lot cheaper for us to do that than to find packages for them and to find homes, places in care homes for them. So I think this is an area that has got to a point where we really need to look at this now, and possibly have a look to see if we could transfer some money that we would be using for that into this, to try to keep people in their own homes. So this, in the long run, spend to save, because it's going to be cheaper. I don't suppose that's for you to answer, Rob, but it is, and I'm not being political, and it's a genuine point I'm trying to make here, is that we really need to wonder where the funding is going. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. We have the Cabinet all on site today, so they have listened to your observations, and they'll obviously take them in due course. Okay,
thank you very much, Chair.
Could I just come back slightly on that as well?
Thank you, Robert. Thank you.
Yeah, just with the cost, the councillor was spot on with everything she said there, but we're also taking into account the inflated costs of materials at the moment. So our maximum grant is £36,000. That isn't going as far as it used to by a long way. So we're spending the budget quicker and quicker. And now with the higher demand that's going to come in now with these small minor works, which are going to go straight into the system, the demand is just going to go through the roof. So you are right, people will then wait longer on the waiting list. We think within a couple of years, 18 months, people could be waiting 2 to 3 years on the waiting list. And of course, people then will deteriorate in that time. So they may have come in looking for a small or medium grant. In 3 years' time, chances are they may need a large grant, because they would have deteriorated, and we would probably have had to put care in the meantime. So it is a real double-edged sword, this one. And we agree with the Welsh Government's aspirations with this. We totally agree with removing the means test. We think it's a good idea. However, it comes with some significant consequences.
Thank you, Robert. That's quite good. Can I bring in Angela Thomas, please?
Yes, just to echo those sentiments really, but to add, this will also have an impact on people coming out of hospital. It's not just about keeping people in their own homes. If they're in hospital and waiting for adaptations to be released from hospital, that is going to clog the system as well. So it is a double-edged sword, as Rob says. Whichever way you look at this, it's not a good news story for adult services. Good in as much as their aspiration, but not well thought through.
Chair, may I come back very, very briefly and just ask that the Cabinet Member for Finance takes this up with Welsh Government for us, explaining the unintended consequences and see if we can seek further funding from Welsh Government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. I have got a nod from the Cabinet Member. Okay, so we will try and proceed with that. Thank you. We're moving along next. Oh, sorry, gotta make sure we get the right one. The recommendation is listed on page 86 of the Cabinet Agenda pack. Can I please have a proposer and a seconder, please? Proposer first, please.
Happy to propose, Chair.
Councillor Marcia Spooner, thank you. And a seconder, please.
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. Thank you very much, everyone.
Before we go to the vote, Chair, can I just confirm that Councillor Carol Clement Williams is that a legacy hand?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. If members do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this decision is supported to Cabinet.
I can't see any indications to the contrary, Chair.
Thank you very much. Moving on, item 13. I don't have any questions on that. Agenda item 14, UK Shared Prosperity Fund. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
Chair, I'd just like to introduce the report briefly, and if members are willing, my colleague Lisa Willis will do a very, very brief run through of some slides just to give some context in relation to this fund. All I wanted to say is that the 4 authorities within the region have developed their own local investment plans, and that has fed into the regional plan. So it has encompassed what we need at a local level. And we had feedback in relation to the draft plan yesterday from Welsh and UK government to indicate that we were the only region who'd actually submitted a draft plan for consideration. So, you know, we are well ahead of the game, and they were very impressed with the content and very supportive, albeit in advance of the official submission date. If I hand over to my colleague Lisa, and she will whiz through some slides for you just to give you that detail that may well help your understanding of what the SPF is all about. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nicola. Lisa?
Okay, thank you. I'll be very quick. So I'm just going to give you an overview of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which is a new fund. It's part of UK government's Levelling Up agenda, and it's a capital and revenue fund, and it's local allocations. It's not competitive like the Levelling Up fund. It's a local allocation, and it's up to the local areas to identify the challenges and opportunities and what gets funded by the Shared Prosperity Fund. So Neath Talbot, we've got an allocation up until March 25, and the allocation is just under 28 million for the core Shared Prosperity Fund, and it's about just over 5 million for the Multiply, which is a new fund which is looking at adult numeracy. So in terms of the investment priorities, it's quite a flexible fund, and it's based around 3 priority areas. So one of them is communities and place, which is looking at town centre development, also looking at rural and valley community development, and pride in place. The second priority is supporting local businesses. So that's potentially business startup funds, green growth funds, things like that. And then there's a people and skills, which is looking at employability, so ensuring we support people into employment, and also looking at skills and ensuring the local citizens and residents have sufficient skills to apply for and attain the jobs made available. To unlock the allocation, so we have an allocation, but to unlock that, and Nicola just mentioned, we've developed a local investment plan, which is fed into the regional investment plan, which is a high-level document outlining the challenges
faced by the local areas in the region, and also the opportunities. So we fed that into Swansea Council, who are nominated as the lead for the Shared Prosperity Fund. And we've carried out considerable consultation on the local investment plan throughout the month of June, and that's through the partnership groups and also with private third sector groups. So, and there was a regional consultation event last Monday. We've also consulted with members of the Senedd and also with MPs on the investment plans. So just to give you a quick insight into the investment plan, it's not reinvent the wheel. It's based on a number of key documents in terms of Neath Talbot corporate plan, our local economic recovery plan, the South West Wales regional economic delivery plan, the skills plan, and also our public service board wellbeing assessments. Just to give you a quick overview of what's included in the investment plan, you've got it as your appendix to the report. The number of challenges identified in community in place are looking at town and city centres. This is a regional plan, so looking at Swansea as well, but looking at rural and valley communities. We made sure that that was going to be quite flexible in terms of the Neath Talbot rural and valley communities, looking at our ageing population, wellbeing, access to services, including transport, looking at climate change, heritage, and ensuring we support digital inclusion across the area, looking at Welsh language and also community cohesion. In terms of the opportunities we've identified opportunities for potentially having funds to support our town centres, our rural, valley and rural communities, looking at travel opportunities, digital, and looking at the foundational economy, and also maximising our heritage, culture and sport potential of the area. In terms of supporting local business, so Julie Davis and the team are working with our business community to ensure we address the challenges which are detailed here, and also look at the opportunities of Neath Talbot's got quite a specialist area. We've got high manufacturing. We need to look at that, but also looking at decarbonisation and looking at ensuring we've got a diverse economy to look at economic prosperity, looking at supporting foundational economy and also the circular economy, looking at tourism development, and also supporting our regional strengths. I mentioned manufacturing. People and skills. So the key challenges in Neath Talbot, we've got high levels of economic inactivity. Also looking at skills, we've got low levels of level 4 and above skills. And also we need to ensure that our young people are not disadvantaged. So we're making sure that there's progression for our young people. And in terms of the opportunities for people and skills priority, we're working with education colleagues and also across education providers, so further education colleges and higher education, to look at providing a skills escalator, ensuring that nobody gets left behind and everybody has the opportunity to develop their skills either in work or not in work to progress and increase life chances. We have just received information from UK Government in terms of the application process, which we'll be developing throughout the month of August, and looking at when we have our investment plan approved, that we'll be ready to support projects coming forward, looking at ensuring there's a joined up approach to projects and look at making sure it covers our key challenge areas for Neath Talbot, for example, employability, skills, business support, and ensure we've got town centres, our valleys communities supported. And in terms of timelines, the 1st of August, the regional investment plan will be submitted to UK Government. And Nicola mentioned we're the first region in the UK to submit a draft plan. We're looking to get approval probably in the autumn budget statement, and then the fund will run until March 25. I can stop sharing, and that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the Shared Prosperity Fund.
Thank you very much, Lisa. That's very informative. Thank you very much indeed. I have just a couple of questions on this. Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just say, it's really good to see the inclusion of the rural wards and the valleys. Really, great work by staff on this, and the work they've done over the last year to 6 months to get things ready and to be aware and to produce this kind of report and get praise for, along with the rest of the region, for having a draft report in at this stage. So that's really good to hear. However, there is an awful lot here, and there's going to be a really quick turnaround, and I fully understand the UK government's always getting things to authorities in the last minute, changing the rules halfway through, as they have. I mean, CRF said that it was going to be distributed and all sorts of people would be able to apply. Now it's down to local authorities to distribute the whole fund. It's, you know, it's been a changing feast as we've moved forward through all of this. However, and you've got to get applications in by the 1st of August, really short deadlines. What I wanted to know was, would there be an opportunity as early as possible for a presentation to all the council, so that everybody could see what is going in, what's going forward, what we're talking about, so that everybody can be aware, because that would be really helpful. And, you know, not wanting to get in the way of the process in any way, just wanting to be informed after the fact of what was possible and what was available. And also, while I'm talking, just to say, really pleased to see the wide-ranging delegations in this. Thank you.
Chair, can I come back on that?
Would you like to respond?
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Thank you for the support as well with the documents. In terms of projects, we haven't actually opened the fund for projects yet. The document to be submitted by the 1st of August is a high-level strategy, and we will be working to develop the projects going forward. So the 1st of August is a deadline for the strategy, not for the projects. So there's plenty of time for projects to come forward. Well, plenty of time by March 25 to complete. So we have been working throughout the month of June, well, before that as well, with organisations across all sectors to ensure they're thinking about the types of projects they want to come forward, and to make sure that they have aligned to the outcomes and the indicators to ensure they're going to be local projects. So we've gone through, this is not, and it's also not directly replacing European structural funds. So this is sort of local type projects. So it's addressing the local needs and challenges. But yeah, as part of our project appraisal process, we will be ensuring that before we sign off any funding agreements, they will come through Cabinet for sign off, so you're fully aware of what's going forward. That's part of our decision making process, which we are developing over the next few weeks.
I think, Chair, what I was asking for was a wider council seminar on what where we're looking to go and the likelihoods, just to keep so that all members can work with their wards and work with, you know, businesses and others that might be wanting to bring projects forward or link into activities. You know, it's really vital, I think, that councillors understand the extent of this plan.
Yeah.
Because Nicola Pierce, please, would you like to reply?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Chair, obviously we've got to get the plan approved first. You know, the early signs from UK and Welsh Government are really positive, so we're not anticipating any major problems, if any at all. And on that basis, perhaps after the summer recess, we can organise a seminar with members to take them through the investment plan, because it's a bulky document. It does include a wide range of topics, because we didn't want to not include particular areas and then prevent people from coming forward with a funding opportunity or a project. So it is very wide ranging. So we're more than happy to do a seminar with members. And what we also need to be mindful of is the amount of money involved sounds quite significant, but in the grand scheme of things, over a 3-year period for the whole of the county borough, it's not a huge sum of money. So we need to basically manage people's expectations as well, because that fund is not going to be the answer to every project's ambitions. But we're more than happy to hold a seminar with members so that we can go through the detail with them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nicola. I have one other, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a comment from me. I really wish to commend officers for, you know, getting thus far and being ready to worm money out of national government, because it's not an easy task. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for all the work so far, and I know there's probably lots more to come, but thank you so far.
Thank you. Any other members? Any questions or opinions? No, I can't see any at the moment. Okay, then everyone, the recommendation is listed on page 128 and 129 of the Cabinet Agenda Pack. Could I please have a proposer and a seconder, please?
I'll move, Chair.
Thank you. Proposer, Councillor Patterson, and a seconder.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Regan seconds it. If members do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this decision is supported to Cabinet.
I can't see any indications to the contrary, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll move along. Agenda 15, we don't have any questions on. Sorry, we're into the supplement then, okay? I marked it down as 16A. Cabinet Agenda Supplement. Third sector grant applications, arrangements for 2023-24. I only have Councillor Clement Williams down here as a maybe question.
No, I'm okay. I'm okay, thanks, Chair.
Excellent, thank you very much. So we'll move on that one. Thank you very much. 16B was the Cabinet Agenda Supplement 16B, Castle Drive Culvert Reconstruction. I didn't have anybody down. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
No, other than to thank members of the Scrutiny Committee and Cabinet for receiving the urgent report this afternoon. The report is pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. I've set out within the report the urgency and the reasons and challenges that we are facing. So I'm open to receiving questions.
Thank you. Councillor Reynolds, did you have something down on this, please?
No, I didn't.
Thanks. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from the members? No? Okay. The recommendation is listed on page 7 and 8 of the Cabinet Supplement Agenda Pack. Can I please have a proposer?
Yeah, move, Chair.
Who's that then, please?
Rob Jones.
Thank you, Councillor Rob Jones. And a seconder, please.
A second, Chair.
We'll go for Councillor Patterson then, please, for a seconder. Thank you, everyone. If members do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this decision is supported to Cabinet. We don't have anyone. Okay, thank you, everyone. Moving along. This item's just for noting. It's agenda item 5, forward working programme. We don't have any questions on that. Okay.
Just to confirm, members, that our forward work programme session will be arranged shortly. Charlotte will be circulating dates as appropriate.
Thank you. There are no urgent items.
Urgent items, Chair.
Thank you. Which leads us on to agenda item 7, access to meetings. To resolve to exclude the public for the following items pursuant of section 100A, brackets 4 and 5 of the Local Government Act 1972 and the relevant exempt paragraphs of part 4 of schedule 12A to the above act. Can I please have a proposer and a seconder to move into private?
And move again, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rob Jones. And a seconder, please.
Second.
Councillor Marcia Spooner. Thank you, a couple there. Thank you very much. Yeah. Can I please ask any of the public or press in attendance now to exit the meeting, and can the recording be stopped?